my friends. Jared Dukes at your service. Welcome. Appreciate everybody joining me today. I want to take a second, make sure everything is working the way it should be working. I want to say hello to all of our friends on the X platform. We have some folks joining us on YouTube and Twitch. So welcome once again. Okay, we are on election eve. Finally, we made it, right? Okay, I don't know about you. I talk about these subjects all the time, but I am so glad it's finally here. One way or the other, tomorrow or very soon after tomorrow, we're going to find out who is winning or who won exactly, if all these different propositions passed, failed, whatever. Especially here in the state of Florida, we have a rather lengthy ballot. I believe there's 5 or 6 different propositions. I know around the country they have a lot of different props and different things they're looking to add to the state constitution. Depending on your particular state, there are different laws, different nuances all across the country, as y'all are all aware of. I want to take a quick second, just make sure everybody can hear me. If you can't hear me, let me know. If you have any questions or like to join the conversation, all you have to do is simply click on the link that is inside the chat. And we're not going to be talking a long time tonight, but I definitely want to go through exactly what my predictions are tonight for the election tomorrow. And I want to tell you why I believe that we're going to have the outcome that I'm about to disclose to you. And I think you'll find it interesting, hopefully compelling. So unless there's any questions to begin with, we're going to get started right now. So let's go ahead and switch over to my first screen right here. Okay, take a look at this right here. I'm sure y'all have heard about this. Y'all that generally watch my channel, you will know from time to time I talk about Polymarket. Now, this is really meaningless on some level, but the reason I think it is something worth mentioning is because these are individuals putting their own money. They're actually putting their own money on who's going to win, depending on what the bet is. I mean, who would think we would live in a day and time where you can bet on a presidential election? Well, welcome to 2024, because you can do that. I believe Polymarket is actually based overseas. They are not based here in the United States. But having said that, well, let me back up. I think one of the reasons for that is they don't want to have these figures, these percentages manipulated by somebody trying to influence who's perceived to be the winner. And we know when it comes to President Donald Trump, these polls are definitely off. I mean, they're off big time all the time. So as of today, the polls on this Polymarket have constricted. They've definitely gotten tighter, but that's the way it always is. I don't care what the poll is. Every single election in my lifetime, if you know of a different time or have had a different experience, please tell me in the comments. But I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, it always narrows. I think they just want to keep it going, create a sense of excitement, whatever. I don't know. I don't really know that I care. But they seem to always contract, get closer. They'll always say, oh, my goodness, we don't really know what's going to happen. So-and-so's pulled ahead. Just a sense of excitement. But as of today, it's 56.2% for Donald Trump, 43.9% for Kamala Harris. Now, let's take a quick look at what we call the real clear polls. This is basically a poll of polls and averages of the polling. And let's see exactly where we're at. Then we're going to talk about it. Okay, as of right now, as of today, the day before the actual election, Donald Trump, believe it or not, is ahead nationally by 0.1%. So essentially, it's a tie. But there's something you need to know about these polls. If you remember back in 2016 and in 2020, the polls were wrong. I mean, they weren't just wrong. They were wrong in a big way. And now, why is that? Again, we've talked about this on my channel. We don't really know why it's wrong. My sense is they're wrong because they purposely are over-polling Democrats, or it could be that someone says, oh, I'm an independent, but they don't ask additional questions. For example, how did you vote in 2020, 2000, 2004, 8, 12, whatever? Are you somebody that's went back and forth between voting for Democrat and a Republican? Or is it the case that you identify as an independent, yet you have always voted for a Democrat? These are questions that they simply don't ask. They don't know. There's also the perception of all kinds of different, what we call biases. And essentially, some people just don't want to tell you how they vote or how they're going to vote for president. I can tell you definitively, I know individuals firsthand that are afraid to say that they're voting for President Donald Trump. They're afraid of some kind of retribution or some kind of reprisal. And I think given today's climate, that is extremely unfortunate. But I think Donald Trump is in a very good position. And we're going to talk about that as soon as I point one thing out to you. This day in history, one day before the election, remember, in 2020, which President Biden won, obviously, 6.9% is what they predicted Joe Biden was going to win by. And of course, that never happened. It was a very, very narrow margin that he actually won by. Also, if you look back, not in November, but October of 2020, he was up like 8-9% plus when compared to President Trump. So something's seriously wrong with these polls. When you go back to 2016, in October, Hillary Clinton was up as much as 5% plus against Donald Trump. The day before the election in 2016, she was ahead at 3.2%. So if you have Donald Trump ahead at 0.1, when Hillary Clinton back in 2016 was showing 3.2% ahead, and of course Donald Trump won in 2016, lost at 6.9% ahead, it's a very reasonable inference that Donald Trump is in very good shape. And here's the fact for you. This is an absolute fact. This is not my opinion. This is a fact. Donald Trump right now today is polling better than he has ever polled. He's never had a polling period of time, 2016, 2020, or now, in which he is doing better in the polls. It's just that simple. So very, very favorable. Again, we really will not know. I don't trust any of these polls. I don't care if they're good for Donald Trump or bad for Donald Trump. We're not going to know until we know, which of course is going to be tomorrow. We'll just have to see how this plays out. But don't listen to the news, because let's be honest about it. When I'm listening to the news during the day, every single station is making it sound like Donald Trump is hurting, like he's really behind. How about that poll in Iowa that supposedly came out and Donald Trump's behind 8, 9, 10 percentage points? Really? Give me a break. I don't believe that. I don't think you believe that. There's just no way. And one of the reasons I firmly believe that it's an outlier poll, it's just a wrong, incorrect poll, is nobody went out to Iowa. No one changed their schedule. You didn't see Kamala Harris doing that. Donald Trump didn't do that. That would be like saying that California shows Donald Trump ahead by 10 percentage points. We both know that that's a bunch of nonsense, and we ought not to pay attention to these so-called talking heads in the legacy media, because it doesn't do any good whatsoever. So, all right, let's make sure our feed's looking good. All right, let's switch over to this next map here. Now, this shows what has happened each year in the presidential race starting back in 2020. And it's just kind of a useful tool to see how things have changed over time. For our purposes, I want to talk about and compare what happened in 2016 with 2020 versus now, which takes us to this map. Now, we're going to play out exactly how I think this is going to go and what the margin is going to be, and we'll see how accurate I am tomorrow when everything comes in. Hopefully, we have a decision tomorrow night, but I don't know about you. I'm not extremely hopeful. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how this plays out once again. Okay, what I did on this particular map is, and I want to tell you in the front end, I'm colorblind, so if I get the colors wrong, ignore it. But you know what I'm talking about. This purple color, obviously, is for the Democrats, Kamala Harris. This red color for Donald Trump, the Republicans, and then this green, gray, whatever color this is. These are what they call the battleground states. I don't know if I agree with the so-called talking heads that these are actually the battleground states, but you know what? So what? Let's say that they are the battleground states. Let's talk about hypothetically how this should play out, at least in my opinion. At the top right here is the amount of electoral votes that they're projected to have at any particular point as I'm clicking on this map. And remember, it takes 270 in the Electoral College for somebody to be the next president of the United States. Quickly, if you don't know, the Electoral College was designed by our founding fathers versus having a popular vote of the president. And the reason for that, in case you do not know, is our founding fathers wanted to make sure that it was not basically just a majority rule that gets the presidency. They wanted somebody that was appealing across the country in different regions. They didn't want just a simple majority to be the person that is in the office of the presidency. So whether you agree with that or disagree with that, that's the way it is. So we'll go from there. By the way, I want to give a quick shout out to our American Nana. It's good to see you. Thank you for being here with us as always. All right, let's go ahead and fill this in with the way I think this is going to go. I don't think realistically there's any chance in the state of Georgia that you're going to have a repeat of the outlier of 2020. I just don't see it happening. We had COVID. We had a whole bunch of nonsense going on. It was just a mess. I really don't think that any type of statistics from that year is anything that you can really hang a lot on. Just my opinion. We'll see how it works out. But I'm not making this statement based just because I'm just grasping at air. If you look back at the statistics for the state of Georgia has always been a stronghold for the Republicans all the way back until the 70s, in which, of course, their favorite son and former governor, President Jimmy Carter, was elected president. And, of course, he carried his state of Georgia in the 76 and I believe the 80 election at the same time. So we're going to go ahead and color that in for Donald Trump. Same thing with North Carolina. They say it's a battleground state. I just don't see it. It might be closer than what it has been in the past. But remember, Donald Trump won North Carolina in 2016 and 2020. Let's color that in for him. Finally, Arizona, kind of the same story. The fact that they voted for Joe Biden in 2020 is not the norm. I do not remember off the top of my head how many years ago it was that Arizona ever voted for a Democrat, but I can assure you of one thing. It was a long time ago, not in modern American history. I mean, it was a long time ago, well before, I believe, the 80s or even the 70s. Again, recent history, it has been a Republican stronghold, and I do not see that changing. The only thing that is iffy is Nevada. Now, Donald Trump did not carry Nevada in 2016 or 2020. However, the polling right now is showing that Donald Trump is very strong in Nevada, and most people are thinking he's going to carry it. However, I'm not going to give that to him. We're just going to leave that as a battleground state for right now. So at this particular point, you have the Republicans at 262 and you have the Democrats at 226. Now, everyone is visiting the great state of Pennsylvania. Well, this is the reason why. This so-called blue wall, which includes Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, aka the blue wall, is absolutely mandatory. Kamala Harris has to win all three of these states, or she cannot become the next president. And I'm going to show you that here as we go through here. Now, let's just say that Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania tomorrow. It's all over. That's 281 votes for Donald Trump. End of discussion. That is the reason why you saw Kamala Harris there today. I believe she had 3 or 4 stops. Boom, boom, boom. Donald Trump had 2 different stops in Pennsylvania today. And I think he went to North Carolina and he's going to finish up in Michigan tonight. Now, let's play this out again and let's just say what if, right? Let's say that Kamala Harris picks up Nevada and let's say she ends up winning. Let's say she wins Pennsylvania. She's still only at 251. She has to pick up Michigan. That gives her 266. And then boom, she has to have Wisconsin. All of the blue wall states. And folks, that's not easy to do. Very difficult to do. Donald Trump did that in 2016. Joe Biden did it in 2020. But Kamala Harris clearly has her work cut out for her in these 3 states. A very tall task. But if she's able to do it, this particular scenario would give her 276 and Donald Trump would have 262. Now, just stretching this out here and we'll just play what if so you kind of understand what's going on tomorrow. Let's say that Kamala Harris is able somehow to pick up Georgia. Let's say Donald Trump is able to pick off Pennsylvania. Well, that's when something like Nevada really comes into play because those 6 electoral votes is going to decide the next president of the United States. In this particular scenario, you have 273 for the Democrats, 265 for the Republicans. Let's go ahead and color in Nevada. Boom. Donald Trump would be the president in this scenario at 271 versus 267. Folks, that is close. That is too close for comfort. My fondest wish for this election is that somebody wins it one way or the other. I believe, and when I say that, I mean definitively wins it one way or the other. Nothing super close where we have this protracted litigation where it just takes 30 days for us to figure out what's going on and who's going to be the next president. I just don't think that is healthy for the country. And there are scenarios here where both of them get 269 versus 269 again. I just seriously hope that is not what transpires. One other thing I want to point out too, another reason I think it looks so good for Donald Trump as of right now is because you have states like Virginia, and I believe it is New Hampshire that's in play right now. And there's talk of one or two other states, such as New Mexico. If Donald Trump, for example, wins Virginia, it's all over. And remember, Virginia has a Republican governor in that Glenn Youngkin. So, I mean, it's not inconceivable that he could actually win Virginia. We just don't know. The polling, as we have talked about on this channel for quite some time, is all over the place, is far from being accurate, precise, and we just don't know. But we obviously will just have to tune in and see what happens. Do you not agree with me that when you think about it, the fact that the polls were so off in 2016, they were off heavily in 2020 in the favor of Donald Trump, just has to lead a reasonable person to believe they can't poll when Donald Trump's in the race accurately for whatever reason. I mean, I have my suspicions as to why this is happening, but the truth is we just don't know 100%. So I would say that that's an advantage, a huge advantage, as Donald Trump would say, for Donald Trump. Just kind of common sense, right? Agree, disagree? Let me know. I'm definitely taking a look and see what your comments are, but I think it is what it is. Quickly, I want to say hello to everyone on X. We got 20 some people viewing from there, and of course on YouTube, and we got a friend over on Twitch. Appreciate everybody being here. If you're watching this video later, definitely leave a comment. Let me know what you're thinking, or if you have any questions. I try to personally respond to each and every comment one way or the other as soon as I'm able to do so. And I definitely appreciate everybody joining us today. Now, let's go ahead and switch. I want to take a look at a couple other things here. Yeah, American Nana, I appreciate that. I believe Trump has. I think so too. I'm cautiously optimistic Donald Trump has it. Just for the record, if I had to go ahead, and which I'm going to do, and say this is what's going to happen, my guess is going to be Donald Trump's going to win all of the battleground states. I think he's going to have a sweep of all 7 of these so-called battleground states. So that's going to leave him with roughly, I think it's like 312 electoral votes. I think that's how it's going to play out. But again, we're going to have to wait and see. Do I think he's going to win Virginia and things like that? Probably not. But I think it's reasonable, based on the information I have, based on the polling and all these other things we've been talking about. I think that's exactly how it's going to play. But again, we'll have to wait and see how that all pans out. So let's go ahead and bounce over to the next video. I want to take a quick peek at. There's several things that I thought were extremely interesting that we need to understand. If you know anyone, by the way, that is thinking about voting for Kamala Harris, please send them a copy of this video. Let them hear a few of the things we're going to talk about tonight so that they can make up their own decision about her. I think that having her being so close to being the president of the United States is extremely concerning, extremely scary, and it's almost unbelievable. We have a de facto socialist / communist, put your own adjective in there, that is just a breath away, a day away from possibly being the next president of the United States. And I'm very prayerful to God that that simply does not happen. I mean, this is really scary. And listen, I get it. Some people don't like Donald Trump because of his personality or whatever. I get it. So what? So he doesn't have the best personality in the world. We're not electing someone to be the Pope. We're not electing Mr. Congeniality. We're electing the next president of the United States. We need a strong leader, whether it's a man or a woman, someone with experience, someone that can get the job done. Someone like Kamala Harris, she is clearly at a minimum a socialist. She wants to push in on top of each one of us this Green New Scam, as Donald Trump calls it, aka the Green New Deal. She wants to get rid of guns. I mean, she has said repeatedly that she wants to have a mandatory confiscation, aka a buyback program, which is just the police going door to door collecting guns. The list goes on and on. This is a woman that talks about not just being equal under the law. She wants equity. That basically means taking more from each one of us and passing it out to other people that don't have it. That is communism. That's borderline. She calls Donald Trump a fascist all the time. Folks, that's fascism. That's what it is when you forcibly take it from someone and give it to someone else. That, again, that's worse than communism. I just don't get it. What is the appeal for someone like Kamala Harris, for someone to vote for her? I can only imagine that people are scared of losing something they're receiving from the government. But my friends, I'm telling you, you don't want to be essentially a slave of the government. I believe it was Pluto that said a long time ago that the main problem with a true democracy is that when everyone realizes they can vote themselves the treasury, it's all over. It's done. I realize, because I know I'm going to get a comment like this, we are not a true democracy. We are a constitutional republic. I get that. I understand that. But my point is still what I just said. And I honestly think that people realize that Donald Trump will probably be the next president. You have newspapers, for example, that are simply not willing to go out and do what they normally do, and that is back the Democratic candidate. They see, hopefully, what I am seeing, that this is not in the best interest of the country. And by the way, if you live in Pennsylvania and you think Kamala Harris is going to allow fracking, you need to look at her comments. You need to rethink your position pertaining to Kamala Harris. She is going to ban fracking, absolutely guaranteed. And if she doesn't come out and say, I ban it, what the government does is they just regulate the living hell out of it. That's what they do. So it's a de facto ban. They just put so many conditions and restrictions on it that it's a de facto ban. And you don't want that in our country. Look at gas. We were energy independent when it comes to gasoline and pumping our own resources that God has blessed our great nation with. We have more oil and different resources, natural resources, than any country in the world. I mean, we are blessed in so many different ways. It would take a very long time for me to list them all out here. But the Biden administration, the Harris administration, they just outright on day one started taking measures to take us off using our own gas supply. Instead of being energy independent, where we were exporting to the world, now we're in a situation that we're dependent on people like the dictators over in Venezuela to receive our oil. And I get it. You're worried about the environment. You're worried about the country. You're worried about the systems, the environment around here, the air we breathe. I get all that. But what you don't understand is the oil that comes from Venezuela is not the sweet Texas crude that we all see on television. It's a nasty, nasty, tarry type of nonsense that is very, very environmentally unfriendly to convert into gas and to other products. Guaranteed. If you don't believe me on that, look it up for yourself. You know, that's one of the things my channel is all about, is encouraging other people to go out and make up their own decisions by figuring out their own information, figuring out, educating themselves on what they need to know in order to make an informed, good, proper choice that will benefit our country, you and your families. It's extremely, extremely important that you do so. Ending the dreaded disease of indoctrination, again, is absolutely what I'm all about. Okay, let me switch over to the next thing because I don't want to make tonight too long. I just want to touch on a few things here, and then I'm going to move on. So here we go. Let's take a look at a few of these things I want to share here on the X platform. So we'll do this and we'll do this. Okay, take a look at this here. I love some of the videos and stuff that's put out by John Stossel and some of these other people. He just has a fantastic channel. If you remember, he used to be on 2020 on ABC a long time ago. I mean, this guy is really good. And well, let's take a look. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So let's.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Who is Kamala Harris? She won't hold news conferences and rarely takes questions from reporters. Instead, she reads the same speech off teleprompter again and again.
The path to the White House runs right through this state.
Her campaign also releases carefully produced videos.
We believe in a future where every person has the opportunity not just to get by, but to get ahead.
That would be good. But would Harris's policies allow that? America's on track to bankruptcy.
The vice president votes in the affirmative.
Harris repeatedly casts tie-breaking votes to spend more of your money.
Unlocking the ability to pass a COVID relief package without Republican votes.
Last election, I ran a game show that compared candidates' spending plan.
I want to bounce around on some of this here because I just want to hit the main points. Here he's going to talk about exactly what Kamala Harris plans on spending in comparison to what other presidential candidates or other people want to spend or have spent. So take a peek at this.
Sanders by trillions. But I was surprised at the biggest spending.
So take a look at this. You have Donald Trump, who has, according to his reporting, has spent 267 billion US dollars. Joe Biden, 297 billions in his administration. You had this Pocahontas lady from Massachusetts. She wanted to spend 3.8 trillion. 3.8 trillion. Bernie Sanders, 3.9 trillion. Take a look at what Kamala Harris wants to spend, and I believe this only includes part of the so-called Green New Deal that will essentially take over anything and everything in our economy. So let's see what it has to say. Look at that.
Kamala Harris.
Unbelievable. $4.162 trillion. Unbelievable.
Her proposals would have exploded our debt.
The highest inflation in 41 years.
Biden's irresponsible spending ignited nasty inflation. Imagine what inflation would be like if Harris had been president. In her first policy speech, she's proposed almost $2 trillion in new spending.
Provide first-time home buyers with $25,000.
Yeah, and so, she talks about this first-time homeowners credit, right? That I'm going to help you buy a home. Well, the problem with that is that all you do when you give money to buy something, anyone that understands basic, simple economics, you just simply raise the price of every house $25,000. If Kamala Harris gives everybody $25,000, when I go to sell my house, you can bet I'm going to add another $25,000 to the price. I mean, this is economics 101. Any 2-year-old idiot knows exactly what I'm talking about. And by the way, I appreciate the comments coming in. You guys are right on the mark with
But they
these.
like their insurance. They don't get to keep it.
Well, listen, the idea is that everyone gets access to medical care.
Now her campaign says she no longer supports entirely government.
And of course, we know Kamala Harris continually switches her positions on whatever it is. She says whatever she thinks she needs to say to get elected. In relation to insurance, she's like, let's get rid of any type of insurance that you may want as far as health insurance goes. And of course, now she's saying she no longer supports that. We know what the reality is.
She's flip-flopped on other issues.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
No question, she told CNN. But now Harris wants votes in Pennsylvania, where fracking provides jobs. Her campaign now says she won't ban fracking.
Yeah, one of y'all made that comment. Live search, you're exactly right about that. Spot on. They don't ban it. They just hit you with a couple million pages of whatever, basically doing the same thing, a de facto ban of whatever it is that she wants to do.
And they even say Republicans claiming she wanted a fracking ban is false, an obvious attempt to prosecute her against even the smallest offenses.
I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truant.
You should have seen this original video. She's real smug. This is when she was younger. She was the actual, Attorney General of this great state of California. You had a younger Kamala Harris bragging to everybody that just with a stroke of my pen, I can go ahead and incarcerate somebody and put them in jail. And she laughs about it, thinks it's funny. They had a woman there that she ended up messing up her whole life because her child was sick, but she prosecuted this lady under felony charges because of truancy. I mean, this is serious, ladies and gentlemen, and she thinks it's just funny. It's something she should do.
But then when progressives said abolish the police, she flip-flopped. And during the George Floyd riots, when people were looting and setting fires, Harris tweeted, help post bail for those protesting.
And we talked about this on this channel, too. That had to do with that, that MMF, that Minnesota monetary fund, whatever it was. It was essentially to help get people that were rioting, destroying the cities right there, causing all kinds of havoc and looting. Police officers were injured, whatnot. And she just thought that it was great. We're just going to go ahead and bail these people out of jail. This is the lady that might be the new president of the United States tomorrow.
I have.
Okay. Like in
And
college, or
I
you did
inhaled.
Did you
I did
inhale?
I
You
did inhale.
You did inhale. Okay.
Here she is laughing about smoking a joint. And listen, I don't want to get off on this subject. You like to smoke? No problem. I have no problem with that. The problem here is, as Attorney General, she incarcerated, I believe it was a couple thousand, 1,600 people for lighting up smoking marijuana and incarcerating them. Yet she's admitted on this particular podcast she did the same thing and just thought it was funny.
Another criticism of Harris is that she's nasty to people who work for her.
Incredibly, there's been a 92% turnover on her staff.
Politico called her office abusive, an unhealthy environment. Now, if she were a hard-charging boss who got results, that might be okay.
This woman has nothing, in my opinion, that she can say is something that she's done that she can point to and say that this is what I've done, ladies and gentlemen. This is what I'm going to do as president. It is so disturbing. I will say one thing I've learned from this process myself is you see the reason why we have a process where we pick the representative for president for each party. You know, basically they have an internal fight inside the party, and you can see that the cream of the crop, at least that's what's supposed to happen, rises to the top. When you have a coup, as what happened with Joe Biden, and you have essentially Kamala Harris appointed, I mean, there's nobody that can tell me that governor from Pennsylvania, was that Josh Shapiro, that is a sharp guy. I don't agree with him, but he's a good advocate for his positions. Or even that Gretchen Wilson from Michigan. These candidates would be far superior to Kamala Harris, but because Kamala Harris is a minority and because she is the sitting vice president and Joe Biden was forced out, they essentially could not deny her this claim because she's the next one in line. And that's exactly is the reason why she's in the position. She's in the position that she's in. It's just extremely unfortunate. Let me take a couple of these here. Harris announced on Exodus Day. Yeah. I think that's going to happen anywhere across the country on recreational marijuana. It may or may not surprise you. My views on this, even though I look extremely conservative, and for the most part I'm heavily libertarian in a lot of my views. I don't do drugs myself. Having said that, as an adult, I don't really know why it's anyone's business. I know that is probably not the way you see it, Live Search, but I'm just telling you that my views are definitely mixed on a lot of things. But yes, this is something that is considered liberal. However, I don't really think it's going to be up to her. It's slowly becoming the law of the land all across the country. I think that's just kind of the way it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Always wanting more. So I wish he would have went with. Yeah, I think. Yeah, hopefully she loses. And if she loses, I can already tell you what they're going to be saying. You already see the footprints of it, or at least some of the signs as to what they're going to say. She's going to say, oh, I only had 2 or 3 months to actually run a campaign. That's going to be the biggest thing. If I would have had more time, I could have reached more voters. And if I was able to run a normal campaign, people would know who I am and I would have done better. That's going to be number one. And then my opinion, hopefully she loses again. One of her biggest mistakes is what in the world did she do picking Tim Walz? I mean, that is just really shocking. She should have picked the governor from Pennsylvania, as we just talked about. Pennsylvania is the key state in this particular election, the way everything lines up. And it's really shocking that she made that decision. I heard a commentator make the following comment, and I happen to agree with it. One of her most important and first decisions as a potential president of the United States was picking her running mate, Tim Walz, and she chose poorly. Let's just call it what it is. She chose extremely poorly, and I think that is a reflection of who she is and who she would be as commander-in-chief. On the other hand, you had Donald Trump choose someone like J.D. Vance. And friends, the reality is I didn't really know J.D. Vance that well myself, and I wasn't sure Trump made the right call, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. However, I have been I'm a changed man. I think J.D. Vance is perfect for that role. He's very well spoken. He's very articulate. He has charisma, and he is sharp as a razor when it comes to them debates. Let's just call it what it is. I think he is definitely a good pick. I have no problem with J.D. Vance. If you agree, let me know. Otherwise, tell me if you don't agree. She's been in there. Yeah, that's exactly right. When she says, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. Why haven't you been doing that from day one? And I get she's not president, but she could have been jumping up and down and yelling and screaming and saying, hey, this is what we need to do. And of course, she has not done any of that. See, people dug up a lot of dirt over the weekend when that video was released and Sully. Yeah. Oh, well, I didn't think about that. I did not know that, but I wouldn't be surprised. I guess you're talking about Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, live search. It could be, that might be the reason why she did not pick him. But if you listen to him talking during debates and stuff, I think he is a sharp talker. Straight up, that Tim Waltz, I mean, that guy there, he is very challenged when it comes to speaking. And how many lies has he been caught in? I mean, wow. JD is an, yeah, I agree with you. Always more sure to see, but she's saying she's been the last one in the room. Yeah, that's what we're faced with, and that's that's scary when you think about it. So we'll have to, again, we'll know tomorrow. I want to show one last video that I want us to take a peek at, and you guys tell me what you think about this. But this is Vivek Ramaswamy, if I can say his name right. And he basically has these things going on where he is talking to different people. I'm not sure exactly what the forum is, but I've been watching some of these videos. Very interesting how he handles these people. And this guy is very well.
Vote for someone who's not going to respect my vote.
You guys tell me what you think
If
about.
I had to pick between the two today, I would probably pick Kamala.
That's honest. That's honest.
But
you're still undecided.
I'm coming to ask you a question.
Just a quick background. This is some event where Vivek is taking questions from the crowd, and one of the issues I've been very concerned about is free speech. Make no mistake about it. Free speech is under attack in this country by the Democratic Party. You have people over in Britain, over in Brazil. I mean, they're trying to go after Elon Musk. They want to put a stop to free speech, including here in America. And Kamala Harris is one of the biggest people pushing this. Remember, she's one of the loudest voices screaming to take Donald Trump off what was then Twitter. And of course, that's what they did. They're using the disguise of what's the word they use? Oh, misinformation. We have to put a stop to misinformation. Well, my friends, let me tell you something. It is the case that our founding fathers put it in the Constitution that we can say whatever the hell we want, at least up to a point. You can't say fire in a crowded movie theater. You can't make physical threats against somebody per se. But if I want to say misinformation, I can say that. And if I say something someone doesn't like now, they call it hate speech or they call it misinformation. And I'm telling you that this is the foundation where they're going to try doing in the United States what they've done in Britain and in Brazil. And in Britain right now, there are people incarcerated for posts that they have made on X. If you don't believe me, look it up. Video coming soon. I promise you, this is scary stuff, and we must all do whatever we can to stop it. But I don't want to digress. Vivek's going to go down this road right here, and he's going to explain some interesting points about the so-called January 6th.
You got an open mind still.
Yeah. Right now, my biggest turnoff from Trump is the handling of the 2020 election and January 6th. I don't feel that I should vote for someone who's not going to respect my vote if it's not for him.
Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the best measure of the health of American democracy. I'll tell you what it is. It's not the number of green pieces of paper in our bank account. It's not even the number of ballots that get cast every November. The best measure of the health of our democracy is the percentage of people who are able to say what they actually think in public, just as you are right now, right? And even if
Well, I love that. I love that. The best measure of the health of a particular democracy is essentially what can you say freely in the public square. I love the way you
leave
put
this,
that.
say you want to vote for Kamala Harris, I will, and Donald Trump will always fight to the death for your right to say it. Here's what happened in 2020. They told you that if you said the COVID began in a lab in China, to shut up, sit down, you're a racist, silence your social media accounts, censor if you'd be able to say it. The Hunter Biden laptop story on the eve of the last election censored the New York Post's accounts on Twitter, on every other social media platform. You couldn't even send it on direct message, like email to your friends. No, you were physically blocked from doing it. And then we were told that, okay, at least you get an election to sort this out. And the way the elections were conducted in the back of COVID really suffocated the voices of Americans. So if you tell people they can't speak, that is when they scream. If you tell people they can't scream, that's when they start to tear things down. And so do I like what happened on January 6th? No, I don't. And does Donald Trump? No, he doesn't either. And we share a love of this country to make sure something like that never happens again. But the way we do that is by actually allowing people to speak instead of censoring them. And the real threat to democracy is coming from the pro-censorship side. So if you ask me, let me ask you a question. Who do you think is more okay with censorship of political views in this country today? Is it Donald Trump or Kamala Harris?
In my opinion, Donald Trump.
So I respectfully disagree with you. What evidence do you have for that view? Let me I'm going to ask, we're going to go through this. He's being respectful. We're going to treat him respectfully. We will give him the courtesy that the left would not if the equivalent of a MAGA hat wearer showed up at a left-wing version of this.
That's right.
Okay? So I'll tell you this. Give me evidence of where Donald Trump suppressed somebody else's view from being expressed.
I don't have it on the top of my head.
Now, may I give you evidence?
Yeah.
May I give you evidence?
That's why I'm here.
So. If you said that you're against school lockdowns, which is a Republican view, YouTube took down your videos. If you said that the Hunter Biden laptop story was real, your social media account was shut down. If you said that COVID-19 began in a lab in Wuhan, all of these things we now know to be true, you were shut down, in part at the direction of Democratic, bureaucratic actors, and many in the Democratic Party favoring that to protect the public from so-called misinformation. So I'll ask you again, when you look at the record of evidence of which party has been more in favor of censorship, do you believe right now that's the Democratic Party or the Republican Party?
Based off what you said, the Democrats, but I'm sure there's evidence on both sides.
So I don't think there's evidence on both sides, but what I'll give you is the best argument for that they make. The best argument they make is we need to protect the people from misinformation. Okay, they would say that if the voters are not well informed, they can't actually have a true democracy because you have to be able to protect people from hearing the wrong thing. That's their view. They're not even defending the First Amendment or free speech anymore. But what they're saying is that you got to have modifications to the First Amendment to be able to make sure that voters aren't misled. Here's my view and here's Donald Trump's view. The right answer to bad speech is not less speech. It is more speech. So let me ask you, as a voter, tell me your name again. Evan. Do you believe it is a more important objective to preserve the freedom to express any opinion in America? Or do you believe that it's okay to censor sometimes as long as you're limiting the amount of misinformation? I'm framing it fairly here. Which one do you think is actually more important?
I think censoring the right people, like people high up, from stopping.
But you can't do that.
Like
that's what he's going to point out.
How do you know what type of censorship is actually censoring the right information, and who gets to decide that?
That's a very good question.
So our founding fathers had a view on this matter. They believed that any opinion gets to be expressed. That doesn't mean somebody gets to walk in here and say, I'm gonna kill you all or whatever. Nope, that's not an opinion. That's a threat. That doesn't mean that you get to sell somebody some kind of snake oil that's going to kill them and tell them it's a medicine. That's commercial fraud. But the expression of any opinion, no matter how heinous it is, that's what the First Amendment protects. And I think the Democratic view today is that there are certain opinions that are so heinous that you don't get to express them in the United States. They call it hate speech.
That's perfect. That's exactly what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. I have to tell you, whether you agree with Vivek or not, that is one sharp guy. That is one smart guy. He really knows how to properly and thoroughly express himself. I love the way he puts the January 6th debacle. I like the way that he talks about our right to free speech and how it's coming under real assault. I mean, there are people such as the vice president that wants to limit our ability to speak. And I love the way Vivek put it. The founding fathers wanted us to be able to express any opinion we want, whether or not it is misinformation or not. And the reason for that is simple. Who determines what is misinformation and what is truth? You would think it's easy to say what is true and what is not true, but it is not that easy in the world that we live in. I have had problems on YouTube. Many of you probably know it. That's one reason I've been working harder on my X account, because there are certain things I cannot say on YouTube. There are certain things I've gotten in trouble for on YouTube. I had a warning. I didn't get a strike, but I had a warning issued to me on something pertaining to Kamala Harris. If you're interested in it, you need to check out my X account at Reach JR Dukes, because I'm going to be posting a lot of special content, certain content on there. And of course, if you're on YouTube, definitely subscribe. If you're on X, please take a moment and subscribe. It's just the world that we live in right now, and we have to fight like hell to make sure we never lose our ability to speak our truth, to speak our opinion. This is the reason our founding fathers set it up this way. And you know what's amazing to me? It's obvious that the hand of God was on our founding fathers to be able to look through the prism of history, to think, to debate, and then come up with a beautiful document like our Constitution of these United States, and more particularly the first 10 amendments, aka the Bill of Rights. Amen and amen. I mean, that is amazing that they were able to put together such an odd place as America. We have never had a country like America in the history of humanity. There is a definite, clear argument that the United States is special. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, we are divided. There's no question about it. I do believe democracy is on the line, but it's not from Donald Trump. It's from Kamala Harris and her cronies. The Democratic Party has been hijacked. I don't recognize the Democratic Party anymore. The Democratic Party of today is not the Democratic Party of JFK. It's not the party of Bill Clinton. I don't have time to get into that. I will talk about it in videos and lives as time progresses. But make no mistake about it, it is important. Right now, the takeaway for tonight is each and every one of us, if you have not voted, please get up, make the effort, go out tomorrow and vote. Bring your family and friends with you to the polls. Make sure that they have all the information they need and they understand how serious this particular election is. We cannot take nothing for granted. There is a threat to democracy, but it's not Donald Trump. It's these loony woke cuckoos that have hijacked our country. We have a party in power right now that thinks it's normal to put tampons in a boy's bathroom. They think it's normal for women to have to compete with men. They just had a news story today on that one boxer in the Olympics. He's got testicles and he's got some other minor parts. You can look it up if you're interested. And he has a X and Y chromosome. And yet they allowed him to get in the ring and beat the hell out of a few women. Just unbelievable where our country is going and where it is at right now. And we must speak these truths. We must talk about it, even on a small channel like mine. Trust me on this. You never know how it's going to affect everyone. I'm just not some older bullheaded guy sitting here, blah, blah, blah. And I'm telling you, sooner or later, everyone will get this message, but we all have to do our part, speak out, and we have to do our part to vote. And folks, I want you to know one thing before we go. Our better days are ahead of us. I am very, very certain of that. We just all have to work towards a better future together. And if you think things are bad now, I had someone one time say, things are really bad right now. It seems terrible out there. Well, I got something to make you feel better. It may seem bad right now. It was a lot worse in our past. And if you don't believe me, if you would have been alive today in 1863 in America, it would seem like a very bad and dark place. Of course, that was the height of the Civil War. You had people hand to hand standing next to each other, trying to kill one another, to put it bluntly. That was a bad time in our country's history, but I'm very confident about our future together. Let me take a few of these comments real quick. Again, I want to tell everybody we got a good crowd right now. We have 21 or so on X, 7, 8 people on YouTube. We got a friend on Twitch. I know a lot of y'all will see this after hours. Always wanting more silver. Yeah, I was talking about the suspended accounts. Again, gratefully YouTube didn't suspend my account or take me down for a week. It did aggravate me. I'm not going to lie about that. They sent me a warning. Okay, big deal. But again, I can't talk about the subject because I want to respect their rules. Having said that, I'm going to work in the future either on Patreon or on the X platform or whatever, and make sure that certain content is only put on platforms that I feel comfortable with. And listen, if you're wondering why Elon Musk is working so hard to make sure Donald Trump becomes president, he's worried about the same things we're worried about. And I'll tell you something else about Elon Musk. Here's a bonus for you tonight. Elon Musk is worried about going to jail. What? What are you talking about? Yeah, I'm telling you, they want to put that man in jail. If you don't believe it, just ask the mayor of New York. What's his name? Adams. He came out and started complaining about the reality of the immigration crisis going on. And what happened to him? Now he's looking at going to prison the rest of his life because he cut through red tape to allow the Turkish government to have an embassy. He cut through red tape. He received, if I understand it correctly, he received an upgraded plane flight. That was supposed to be the money that he illegally received. Folks, this is the world we're living in. This is the reality. And Elon Musk knows that if the Democrats resume power, they're going to use lawfare to come after him the same way they've used it against former President Donald Trump. That's just a fact. I don't have time for it today, but we will talk about in the future. There's a video by the current president of the country of Ecuador, and he was at the United Nations, and he was giving a friendly speech to his friends and saying, friends, you need to think twice before you go after a man just because of his views. You take his money away just because you don't like him. You try to incarcerate him the way third world countries do when power changes hand. We need to make sure this ugly chapter in American history never repeats itself. Live search, the 26th Amendment, lower the voting age. Yes. Rafa, thank you for that. And hello to Rose Marie. We always appreciate having you here. The founding fathers originally only intended for landowners. Yeah, I think originally that is exactly correct. And they only wanted people that were educated to vote for sure. Obviously, that's not appropriate for today's age, but that was their thinking. They didn't want people to make a bad choice. I mean, I used to not understand that. I understand that now. And to be clear, I'm not advocating for that. So please don't send hate mail. I'm just telling you that I understand why they did what they did at that particular time. Let's see. Yeah. Well, it wasn't so much that was the reason I haven't been on a live. I've just been making regular videos, as most of you know. But again, I've been working more on my X account. I'm going to continue hammering. What I mean that is working on the X account and the YouTube account, and I'm going to put some content maybe on a Patreon, but I'll let y'all know more about that as time goes on. Yes, I do have an account on Rumble. I generally post over to there. I believe that's under JR Dukes also, or Reach JR Dukes. It's always one of the two for me, so you can always find it one way or the other. If you can't get on X, don't worry about it, my friend. You got right here at JR Dukes. And for some reason, if you ever can't find me, just go to www.jrdukes.com. I'll be able to be looked up right there. I take that website and it's forwarded to whatever I'm doing, or I'll actually have a landing page for you to choose from at some time in the future. But jrdukes.com is the way to think about it. Mom used to say my grandfather would never believe. Yeah, it's funny. I used to listen to my grandparents say the same thing back in the 70s and 80s. They'd be like, oh, I can't believe this world we're living in, and blah, blah, blah. And now it's our turn, right? More nonsense continuing, right? Hey, folks, when it comes to a democracy, it comes to a country, it's not easy. You have to fight for it. You have to work for it. And when I say fight for it, you know what I'm talking about. We have to do what we're doing right now to make sure that this great country of ours never perishes from the face of the earth. What cause he was giving away? They're going after him with his own money, and they would also go after him with the lawfare because they don't like his free speech on the X platform. So they would try to do whatever they could to incarcerate him and penalize him in such a way where he would lose control of X. And as a result, we will no longer have a truly free speech. Remember, Elon Musk is a free speech absolutist. He wants you to be able to say what opinion you have, whether it's popular or not. Remember, it wasn't that many years ago. If you said COVID, you were banned. If you said that it started in China, you were banned. Donald Trump said, we believe this started in Wuhan from a lab. They literally laughed out loud. I remember the press conference. I'm sure you do too. They laughed at him for saying the same thing at the United Nations, something pertaining to Russia. Look, it's just the way it is. And there's a lot of this going on even right now. I don't want to get into it because we're on the YouTube platform, so I will restrain myself for right now. Elon Musk is trying to get us to Mars, but yep, the government sure appreciates the Starlink. Yeah. Say what you want about Elon Musk. He is definitely one smart dude, and I think his heart and his mind's in the right place, and he knows the serious situation that we are in as of right now. And thank you, always wanting silver. Folks, I appreciate each and every one of you. I want you to know that if you're still with me, please hit the thumbs up button. It helps the algorithm on this particular channel distributes this message to more individuals so they can hear the truth. We have to stop the dreaded disease of indoctrination, and that is what I am here for. I truly want you, as I always say, to have a free mind, to free your mind. I was saying free your mind way before that song ever came out back, I think it was 1995. A free mind's what it's all about. Basically thinking for yourself, getting your own information. Don't believe something because I say it. Hear what I have to say. Hear what other people have to say. Look it up yourself, investigate yourself, and then make your own decision. It's really just that simple. I appreciate everyone visiting with me tonight. I do not take it for granted. I am extremely humbled and appreciative. Do your part to get out and vote for the next president of the United States, President Donald Trump. And may God bless each and every one of you. May God bless your families. May each and every one of you have his special anointing on you. I sincerely pray for that, and I mean that. Folks, I like to always say, keep that mind free. Never give up. Until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.